Hi, good morning. This is Real World Audio, and today we are going to look at a very, uh, I would say, important issue, which is the big fuss about the sensitivity of your loudspeaker. And some people name it as efficiency, sometimes you read sensitivity, so it's already getting confusing at that point. But what truly confuses everyone is that some loudspeakers are defined as a certain dB per watt meter, and other speakers are defined as certain dB at 2.83 volts per meter. So when a speaker is given, let's say, 88 dB per watt meter or 88 dB per 2.83 volts, that's not identical. So I'm going to have a look right now, a sneak preview, a really quick dirty work about what's the bloody fuss with this, and why am I bringing it up at all. Aren't we just happy that we see a number, we see the number 88, and then it's 88, who cares what else? And I'm going to show it to you because it can make tremendous difference, and it will really impact on your amplifier choice that you hook up with your loudspeaker. And you might find out that the sensitivity of your loudspeaker is might be drastically different from what you imagine. And when you try to compare loudspeakers, never ever compare the per dB per watt rating with the dB for 2.83 volt rating, because they are identical only when your loudspeaker has an 8 ohm impedance. If it's not 8 ohm, then it's going to be different, and the further away you go from 8 ohms, the more of a difference you will be getting. So I'm going to take two examples for our little demonstration. One of you will, one of not you, one of, I mean you speakers I'm pointing at, will be Wilson Audio's Sabrina, because it's a very popular loudspeaker model, and it's defined as an 87 dB sensitive, and that sensitivity is given for the 2.83 volt rating per meter. And I will use my speaker there, with the Altec drivers, and that one has I do not know exactly what its sensitivity is, but I estimate it at 102 dB per watt meter, not the volts, but per watt. And also there's a huge difference between the impedance of them. None of these loudspeakers are 8 ohm, so the Sabrina is a exactly 3 ohm nominal loudspeaker. I will tell you why. In the brochure it is listed as a 4 ohms, but we will look at the calculation, and the calculation will give you that it's exactly 3.03 ohm nominal impedance. And my loudspeakers are, the drivers can be, they say on it that they are 16 ohm, but doing the calculations they are actually almost 18 ohms nominal. So let's have more details about it. So let's try to compare the two. So of course, like you read in the newspapers or review or whatnot, or you use your calculations, and you try to uh, compare two loudspeakers, and then you can compare any two. I just took two random speakers that will show a good comparison for this little educational video. So we have one that is defined as 87 dB per meter, specified at the volts, and the other is specified at 102 dB at a watt. So you would think that they have a 15 dB difference between the sensitivity of those two loudspeakers, right? Because you do the math, 102 minus 87, the difference is 15 dB. Yeah? However, this is not how it works out in real life, because this value, these values given are apples and oranges. You cannot compare the two of them. So if you have 10 apples and you subtract 5 oranges, you won't have 5 apples left. So let's do. So now I have a Yoda quote for you, so that that don't just follow the numbers blindly. Then open your mind to science. So actually, when you just be aware that when you are comparing these efficiency and sensitivity, these are sensitivity numbers, because the efficiency is actually the percentage efficiency, like that loudspeaker, what is the percentage of the energy that that loudspeaker can convert to sound. And we can have a look at that, but sadly no one specifies efficiency, because then people would be really mortified with low sensitivity loudspeakers, that they just convert 0.1% of the energy into sound, and they convert 99.9% of the amplifier's output into heat. So now let's do those comparisons. So first of all, let's just translate that 87 dB per meter sensitivity figure given at the volts into a watt system, so that we can compare the watts against watts, dB per watt meter to dB per watt meter, to be able to tell how two loudspeakers compare against each other. And that's why I have these two, because I have the ratings given in different format. So now I'm showing you how to convert it. So first of all, when you want to convert, you need to know what is the impedance minimum of that loudspeaker. Don't go with the nominal impedance that the manufacturers give you nowadays, that the reviews give you nowadays, because they have become meaningless. They usually tend to give us just numbers which increase the sales and make you think that you are getting what you are getting. It's kind of like something is advertised as a personal vehicle, but when you try to drive it, it turns out that it drives like a truck. So it's not a personal vehicle, but it was not specified as a truck, and your driver's license will be useless to drive it, because you cannot drive a truck with a personal vehicle license. The same thing applies to loudspeakers, and this is especially true if something is specified as 4 ohms and it's much less than that. So in this case, the Sabrina is specified as 4 ohms, but let's have a look at Stereophile's measurements, because I don't want to just talk in a free air without showing any proof to you or any basis. So here, this is the Sabrina's review and measurements, and the says that voltage sensitivity is specified at 87 dB per watt meter, and let's see, what they have measured is a little bit higher than that, and the minimum value of 2.43 ohms. Oh, wait a sec. Okay, so they have defined it already here as 87 dB per watt meter. So actually we are kind of it cuts to the chase, but when you see the volt per meter rating, That's 89 dB per 2.83 volts per meter. So you see, now we are losing 2 dBs between that conversion. But is that conversion accurate? What's going on? So let's do our math. And it says that the impedance is 2.43 ohms. So this is radically different from the 4 ohms figure, and when you look at the impedance figure, it doesn't matter that you have places where the impedance is much higher than 4 ohms. What really is going to define your loudspeaker, how heavy it is for your amplifier, is the impedance minimum. And for this loudspeaker, it is 2.4 ohms. And the way to calculate the nominal efficiency is to divide that low by 0.8, because that's the definition of nominal impedance. So when you take the nominal impedance, the lowest that the speaker dips is at 80% of the nominal impedance. So from the dip, you can calculate the nominal impedance. So nowadays, loudspeaker manufacturers are lying to us flat out, most of them. And it's not just a question of one company or another. Now it has become general practice to completely ignore the facts and give us fairy tales, such as in this case, if you divide 2.43 by 0.8, we are getting 3.03. So this is a 3 ohms nominal loudspeaker. And they are calling it 4 ohm because there are no 3 ohm taps on amplifiers. And amplifier designers do not design their amplifiers to work with 3 ohm loads. So that's why they are writing it 4 ohm on the paper, so that you hook up your speaker, this loudspeaker, to your 4 ohm tap and get an amplifier that can drive 4 ohms. But I give you this warning, your amplifier will not be happy about it because it's not 4 ohms but 3 ohms. And you think 3 or 4, what's the difference? Well, for your amplifier, it's huge. If you think about it as a human difference, it's kind of like a weightlifter who can lift, let's say, 300 pounds total, and now they are asking that weightlifter to lift 400 pounds instead. That's what the difference is between 3 ohm and 4 ohm difference. It's a major difference for your amplifier. So what's going on here? What else? Let's get back to here. What can we do? So now we know that the impedance minimum is 2.43 ohms. So what does that mean? So if we have, actually now I did this PowerPoint yesterday, and obviously I was a little bit tired and I read the 87 dB value, but when we go back to Stereophile, I have to correct myself, because here, where was that? The measurement is given as 89 dB per 2.83 volts per meter. So this should be 89, not 87. And calculating with the 2.43 ohm actual value, we do find that that 89 dB is provided not by 1 watt but by 3.3 watts. So you need 3.3 watts output power to have 2.83 volts delivered into a 2.4 ohm load. So now let's convert this dB figure that goes to 3.3 watts. Now let's convert it to 1 watt. How do we convert that? You can go to a program like an online calculator, for example this one, and you can put in converting power, 1 watt to 3.3 watt, and then you hit calculate dB. So that's 5.2 dBs lower. So what does that mean? So that's, let me just correct this figure before I confuse the saltwater fish out of everyone. I want to give you accurate numbers here. Okay, so now we have corrected, I have corrected my own mistake. Real life, I mean real time, in real life. And what we find is that we had this specification given for the voltage, but that voltage requires not 1 watt, but 3.3 watts. So when we convert it down to 1 watt, then it's actually 84 dB sensitive loudspeaker. So what's going on? When we go back to Stereophile, they told us it's 87 dB. So why is that bloody 3 dB difference? Because what Sabrina, why the company Wilson Audio gave us that number, because they specified that value for the 4 ohms load. So if we were talking about a 4 ohms load, it would be 87 dB. But this loudspeaker is not 4 ohms, it is 3 ohms load. And that's why it's not 87, but it's 84. So it knocks out 3 ohms, 3 dB sensitivity from that loudspeaker. So essentially we are getting an 84 dB loudspeaker, and that's how hard it is to drive. And so now when we compare the two of them, so 102 minus 84, we can subtract the difference. It is 18 dB difference. So basically what that means, that you need how much, like 60 times more power to get the same output SPL level from these two loudspeakers. So whatever you are getting here with a 1 watt amplifier, or let's say you have a DEC whereas an amplifier with 2 watts output power, you need 120 watt to drive this loudspeaker to have the same volume in the end. Now let's go the other way. So now let's convert this into that volt sensitivity. So what happens when they give you that dB per 2.83 volt rating for a 16 ohm loudspeaker? Then what will it do? We will find that it will deflate the actual efficiency. So when you have a loudspeaker that is lower than the 8 ohm impedance, then it will fake it, so the sensitivity rating will go higher than what it is. And when you have a higher than 8 ohm impedance, then sensitivity rating will be dipping. It will give you an artificially lower value. And why is that? And that is because when you go, when you go lower than 8 ohms, then the rating for that voltage, you need higher watts than 1, right? And for the higher efficiency, higher impedance loudspeakers, then you need less than 1 watt to reach that voltage. And as a result, at that volt specification, the sensitivity will be lower as well. So in this case, the impedance minimum that I have measured is 14.3 ohms. And let's just stop right here for a second. How did I measure, and how did John Atkinson measure it? So he used the DATS V2 system to measure Dayton Audio's DATS V to measure the impedance minimum, and I have used the DATS V3. That's the newer version, but it's the same system. Basically, it's like having the same camera, and that was a 2 megapixel, and this is an 8 megapixel camera. They measure you the exact same thing. Mine measures a little bit finer, but it's the same system. So these two measurements are comparable. So I'm comparing like similar things, and that's very important to know, right? That I'm comparing here using the same tool basically for my measurements as the one given for that measurement. So we can feel more confident about comparing these two values. And that was the impedance dip. Mine dipped to 14.3 ohms. And calculating that, we need almost a little bit over half a watt to get that output voltage, and doing all the calculations. So at that voltage we have 97 dB per meter, and it looks like a much lower value than the 102 dB sensitivity, and that's because it's not given for 1 watt, but it's given for half a watt. So if you drive these loudspeakers with half a watt, you are getting already 97 dB output. And this way, if we are taking out the differences, so like 97 minus, I'm sorry, we have to correct it to 89, because that's the correct value. Let's correct it and not feed you false information. And then the difference between the two is just 8 dB. So if we go with that voltage output rating, then we are getting deceptively low sensitivity differences between loudspeakers, and that's why I think this system was implemented, because no one has to feel bad about their loudspeakers. Essentially their sensitivities are the same. You just need an amplifier that can give you enough current, and then 8 dB difference is not the end of the world. Yeah, it's still something, but heck. But what all of those blurbs are forgetting to tell you is that sure, the difference seems very minute, but we are comparing apples against oranges, because we are getting that difference at a fraction of the power that's required to drive those loudspeakers. So I'm getting that value, that 89 dB, when I'm driving it with 3.3 watts, and I'm getting the 97 when I'm driving it with a half a watt. So that's really different. So I'm getting 8 dB difference when I'm using 1 watt to drive here, and I'm using 60 watts to drive here. So this value, like comparing two loudspeakers with very different impedance ratings at 2.83 volts, is total BS. It will not be useful for anything, because in one case we are comparing 60 watts against 1 watt driving power. I mean 10 watt. Yeah. So this is like a total BS. Anyway, so that's why I really recommend for everyone that when you want to actually have an idea and gauge it, what's the actual sensitivity differences between two loudspeakers, is that convert it to the watt meter scale, watt meter range, because that will give you the accurate difference, that when you have an amplifier that is rated at certain watts, then what are you getting with that amplifier? And that's the end of it, because all the amplifiers have their watt rating, okay? And it makes a very big difference whether you are getting something at 100 watt or 300 watt output. That's a major difference. and it will tell you what sort of amplifier you will need for your project. So that was about it. It became like twice as long as I thought about it, and here we got to the next point, is that this is why I made this video. So this was the preview video, which probably became much longer than the video I want to talk about. That was the prime reason to make this introduction, and that will be about the question that if you have 102 dB efficient loudspeaker and you drive it with 1 watt, then you have 102 dB peak sound pressure level. And if you have another loudspeaker that's 82 dB efficient and you are driving it with 100 watt, you are also getting 102 dB peak sound pressure level. But the question is, Master Yoda, ask the force, but same they are. Is that 102 dB in this case and that case, are they equivalent? So can you mimic a higher efficiency loudspeaker by throwing more watts on your loudspeaker? So this will be the huge question that we will be answering, and today I just give you the preliminaries that how can you accurately gauge what your efficiency, what your sensitivity is before you make this comparison. So, thank you. Please like, subscribe. Bye bye.